I've come to a point where essentially I can't move forward without making a purchase. I have ambitions and want to sell a lot.
And something is happening, and even a restart doesn't help.
For example, the player will be reclaiming some territory, conquering these stars, seeing progress, how it moves.
In other words, the person was interested, came, looked at the reward, and left. Greetings to all. As of today, we are embarking on yet another analysis of games conducted by the renowned CAS.AI. Now we start analyzing the game by Entropy Games, and Petr Karevov will tell us a bit about this game and provide some information. Petr, from my understanding, is the CEO, the visionary leader, and the founder of this company.
Hello all. We're creating a game about spacecraft. It just so turns out that we have zero experience in game development whatsoever, and there was absolutely no prior experience before this undertaking. Whatever occurred, occurred. I'm looking forward to receiving a lot of valuable information from you during the course of today.
Thanks so much. Typically, we start off with ASO, to each and every individual present.
Hello. Let me start the demonstration right away. I'm pleasantly surprised that there are quite a lot of interesting search queries in general. The app has a fairly good ranking. It is apparent that they put effort into it and generally performed App Store optimization quite effectively. There you have it. There are some minor comments regarding, let's take a look right away. Title is 28 chars long, not critical. Better to fill in everything, but overall not critical. It's not critical. Main keywords specified. Same with subtitle of 80 chars and 2000. Description is complete and accurate. Taking everything into account, it is an extremely decent experience. In terms of iOS, let's immediately take a look at it right away and see what it has to offer. I had a question about the subtitle for my iOS. Perhaps I would have played around with it and added some different keywords here, because there are more complex and popular queries than that. What is currently written? But again, not critical. There is also good indexing. There are many search queries, but the problem is that you are always at low positions. So you don't really have much organic traffic from these relevant search keywords. Space is definitely a target query, but the search results are very different. It's a very mixed search, but everything related to shooters, everything related to attacks, battles, and spaceships. These are all your target keywords that you can use to rank at the top and to reach the first position and thereby receive organic traffic directly from them. At the moment, as you can see, either there are no positions or they are very low, so we cannot expect organic traffic from here. Here. As for the rating, I have no remarks on the rating. 4.7 is an excellent indicator. The only thing hanging here is, of course, not a very pleasant review. I see that they are being published in the market. Here are some fairly recent reviews. We need to work on this. Either dislike it somehow to make it disappear from the wall, because it will greatly affect the conversion starting from the transition to the app page to installation. Usually negative reviews are not a very good story right on the wall. That's it. But overall, the rating is good. There are few ratings, but here you either add a beggar to appear more often, or if you have little organic traffic, work with keywords, bring them to the top, start getting organic traffic, and everything will fall into place. With the Android platform, we have achieved a remarkable rating of 4.7 based on 2.2 million user reviews. Everything is fine. Here the wall is 3.3.4. Well, overall, not bad. I watched the video. I liked the video. As for the screenshots, I'm not sure. I look at the screenshots and don't quite understand what will happen in the game. And here, further down where the screenshots are, they somehow, I think, are more interesting than the ones you have at the beginning. And the most viewed, well, those screenshots that will be viewed most often are precisely the first 3 screens. Thus, they ought to be the most effective, yet additionally more informative and attention-grabbing, thereby maximizing their impact and capturing audience attention. So in this situation, I am uncertain. We either need to conduct both tests or attempt to update something in some way. The same goes for the icon overall, because even when viewed from a phone, it's not entirely visible. Maybe it's worth increasing the size of this spaceship somehow, so that it attracts more attention, because if you look at who's in your top rankings, Overall, it's a space theme. It's difficult to depict anything on the icon, but nevertheless. I understand that these arcades, they are everywhere, they are all at the top here, but nevertheless. So, additionally, if you observe, even in these applications, there is a greater emphasis on this ship, on the capability to shoot, or on something else, or somehow stand out with a different color, because at the moment, such a small ship and a small planet, maybe it's worth playing around with the visual part of the application. If you have any questions, ask them. Let's go through them.
Actually, it seems like everything is clear. Here, the questions are more about implementation. How to elevate these keys to the topmost position? Maybe this is not the subject matter of this gathering. Mechanics. Yes, but here we have a bunch. You say we have a bunch of these keys they are pushing. But can we, and approximately how much does it roughly cost? To get an idea of the overall expenses involved.
This is not a discussion specifically about this analysis. We can discuss all of this in detail after this analysis. What keywords, in which geo, what position interests, all of this is calculated and presented. Yes, I will tell you. Well, overall, I mean, from the standpoint of the ASO perspective here, well, I cannot say that there are any there are colossal mistakes, they are not there. There is a description, keys are in the description. You can experiment there with the name, depending on what you have written in your semantics, but I observe that this has been accomplished. I am unable to say that, they wrote 3 lines, did nothing, looked at it, and added some random word without any purpose or significance. They have been working on this, they have done this, but in order to attract more organic traffic, you either attract motivated installations. So when specific keywords are used for installation, you show market demand that users are interested in this particular application and it starts to rise in the rankings. So this is what we are doing. Additionally, in the case of having a substantial volume of traffic from Google Ads, Facebook, and other sources, it will continue to have an impact on your rankings. While it may not result in attaining the top positions, the sheer volume of overall traffic will lead to an increase in your rankings, as well as the emergence of new keywords. To enhance rankings and get organic traffic, the most reliable and fastest option is to boost up and start receiving organic traffic. If no more questions, then that's all. No other method is as effective or efficient in increasing rankings and driving organic traffic to your website.
I have a question, most likely for Peter rather than Vika. Could you please tell me the number of A/B tests that were conducted on the icon and the graphics?
Based on the graphics, screenshots, in fact, we conducted approximately 4, I believe, A/B tests. Here is the icon that we utilized for the tests. The only A/B test we managed to do was an A/B test with an icon. Before that, there was a big spaceship on a red background, a red ship on a pink background. This icon exhibited the most favorable results by approximately 40–50%, surpassing all others. It was immediately obvious that she was superior. I suppose she has the potential for further enhancement. Based on the screenshots, none of the A/B tests were successful. These screenshots we took right from the start. For some reason, they yield the best results. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they don't set expectations too high. I do not possess any answers. We also lack answers as to why. We were engaged in work there with ships, alongside others, and created facial expressions on top of various frames. All of this somehow functions in a more unfavorable manner than before.
And another question. Did you buy any traffic in parallel, not buy any, or purely conduct A/B testing on organic?
Once we made the purchase, once we refrained from making the purchase, these were 2 separate processes happening simultaneously. I did not keep track of ABT here and during the procurement procedure.
Well, in any case, from a visual perspective, you always need to work on icons, on screenshots to enhance the overall presentation. If this icon pops up and it's the best one, then yes, you can just keep pushing it, see what you can do, what elements to add, sneak in something here, remove something there, play around, maybe create a specific planet, like Jupiter or Mars, or add something else, to make it look different in a way. You can try with screenshots. Yes, Oleg gave a good idea. Maybe try to just mix them up, keep the ones that are there, but those that are more, yes, there are interesting ones, where most of the action happens. Not to the extent that there's a lot of everything, as it hampers focus and understanding of the app's overall content. So, in a way, you also need to play around a bit because I watched the video, and after watching the video, I understood what would happen inside the game. Prior to viewing the video, I didn't fully comprehend what would occur in the game based on the screenshots.
So it is actually a really cool idea to mix up the screenshots. I hadn't thought about that before. I thought Google somehow automatically understands which ones work better and substitutes them, but apparently not.
Once you upload them, they will be displayed like this. You can simply rearrange them. Especially with iOS, testing is necessary because they are visible in the search results. So a person comes in, writes Space Games, and immediately sees your icon, immediately sees your screenshots. These 3 screenshots, or in your case, will be visible in the video, and it'll start playing immediately. This is also a big plus. If, for example, there's no video or it's not added for all locales, screenshots will be visible due to differences. Same. How you uploaded them is how they'll be displayed. First videos, then screenshots. If no videos, screenshots shown immediately. Upon observation, it is evident that these screenshots seem to be somewhat lacking in informative content. In general, not bad. I do not observe any crucial errors or mistakes that need immediate attention.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oleg. That's all. Goodbye.
Showing appreciation, Vika. Wrapping up, we can let Victoria go and move forward with our plans for the future. Following that, we will engage in a conventional brainstorming session, and subsequently, we will concentrate on monetization strategies and game design aspects.
Hello, I am happy to be here today to analyze your game. Today we will discuss the acquisition you have made. You have sent a file in which you have provided a brief description of what you have tried and what you have not tried. Let us go over this again in order to keep our viewers engaged and interested throughout the presentation. Please tell me which advertising campaigns were run on which channels, what was successful and what was unsuccessful.
Actually, I cannot remember because the guys themselves are physically present at that location. If I make an effort to summarize what I can recall, the United States of America, Facebook is more or less normal, iOS, in the United States of America. That's what I can remember more or less about my experience in the USA. But in other countries, nowhere is normal. In general, the USA is normally purchased, but approximately in 1, a highly significant type of unevenness. You have the ability to initiate a campaign, and it will immediately progress from 1 to 2, right away to 3, without any delay or hesitation. It happens, and then bam, and that's it, it stops. And it's not just one user, it's not like some big whale came. It's clear that monetization is mainly whale-based, but still there for a few days and there are multiple users. They settle, then bam, and something occurs. And even a reboot, nothing aids. And the reason for this, as it were, this story is not clear. It is a story that is not part of a system and lacks clarity.
I see that Facebook was launched on Android and companies were focused on purchases and ROAS. I understand that this was an advertising ROAS for the first day. And could you inform me, what was the return on advertising spend, a ROAS, that you achieved with purchases on Go? What specific areas were you focusing on?
ROAS Go, I can't answer that.
All right, and I additionally observed that.
Oh, where was the measurement of return on advertising spend?
What was the objective of the advertising campaign? Did you desire users to? Where was the return on advertising spend?
No, where there was ROAS 04, I believe, the target. 40% on day 1? Yes, but we gradually raised.
Is it 40% for a duration of 1 day? Is that right? Somehow you had a desire for the first day to bring in 40% of the total revenue.
In my view, the 7th day is omnipresent.
No, if by default the conversion to a deposit is set to 7 days, but you did not transfer before the beginning.
In the planned campaigns, 1 day is set.
Well, conceivably, maybe.
And I perceive that you are indicating that the average CPI was $3.514. Is this in the United States of America, as you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
Well, I comprehend iOS and Android. Here, I desire to clarify, well, why it did not pay off. It is quite clear and obvious, because you only have foreign monetization, which is the sole source of revenue for your app. It will not be financially viable in any countries apart from Tier 1, as defined by the given criteria for profitability. Well, we will probably have a discussion about that a little later. Today, I would like to commence with the analysis of the gameplay. We have Rinaz, Maxim, and basically everyone. And then there are Denis and I who will also be involved. Let's continue. Rinaz, you start, Max will continue. Okay? and then Denis and I will summarize, brainstorm what we see specifically in terms of monetization.
Besides the text, voiceovers can be included to enhance engagement. Moreover, there is a skip function available, although it is not present on all pages, providing users with the option to bypass specific sections when desired. It is uncertain whether I am sustaining damage or not, solely if you observe this specific location in the corner at the top left. The HP bar for the ship is presently not visible, but it can be enlarged to improve visibility and enhance the user experience of the game. And include a border, and incorporate the effect of receiving damage, because it is unclear when you receive it. And voiceovers can be highly effective in tutorials. Fourth, in general, in my opinion, it's impossible to lose a battle, no challenge. So you enter a battle, win, improve, enter, win, improve. Is it even possible to lose there?
In early missions, it's impossible. Then the player will likely lose. Around the 7th or 9th, they'll definitely fail.
In the store, it's not visible how much money you have. It could be added somewhere at the top. And there's no advertising at all, no rewards. Rewards can be added, for instance, doubling the reward after winning. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Rinaz. With regard to the voiceover, I just wanted to mention that at the moment, we don't really need any actors or anything like that. You can purchase this item from a high-quality source, namely AI, by simply placing an order through their platform, and it will accurately vocalize your request. About the lack of advertising monetization, that's clearly evident. We will all probably talk about it, me, Denis, and I'm not sure about Maxim. But overall, Maxim will also mention this part right now. Maxim.
In general, yes, I agree that when a player begins to lose, it would be beneficial to provide a reward, at the very least, for replaying the battle. However, the overall impression of the game is somewhat mixed. On the one hand, I appreciate the excellent graphics. She's impressive, she, let's say, initially captivates. On the other hand, everything seems quite complex initially when you first encounter it for the first time. It seems that understanding this is not so simple, although there is a good tutorial. And going through this tutorial, basically the main functions are understandable. However, as far as I understand, to unlock other features in the game, such as the expedition level, arena, grand arena, and rifts, you need to complete quite a few levels. In fact, it becomes routine. So the battles take place there, and maybe they can be sped up, but I'm not sure. The player relies completely on automation, which means that they do not participate in any form of interaction, including the automatic utilization of special weapons on the ships. After that, he only sees the picture, just witnesses the battle, and waits for the outcome of this battle. To win the battle, when he has already passed several stages there, for example, what does he need? He needs to elevate his skills, enhance his abilities, upgrade his ships. And it is not entirely clear, even after the tutorial, how to strategically choose and optimize the composition of his squadron in order to maximize effectiveness and overcome challenges. So maybe what's lacking is to go through the ship types, to say, for instance, that a fighter is good at taking down destroyers or something like that, because then it becomes difficult for the player. They realize that they are not winning the battle. He needs to improve the ships. In fact, it's just like a random selection of your team with which you fight against the opponent and simply wait to see if you win or not. So, the mechanics themselves boil down to routine. And I reached the expedition level, which became available after completing the first stage. It seems like there are stages. I have counted 200 stages, and each stage has 10 levels. This means you have a total of 2,000 levels, which is quite a large number. On one hand, it's great that there's lots of content, but on the other hand, well, after 10-15 levels, it becomes repetitive. Not interesting anymore. Just the same thing repeating. It could be easier to let the player know there are more levels in the game, initially closed to them, so he does not even reach the understanding that what comes next might be more interesting. Here, yes, on one hand, we want the player to play more, to explore. But does he perceive the value in this game in the long run? I think he gets bored more at the start. It becomes less interesting, boring, and doesn't stick. And this might be the reason for quick drop-offs there, like at the start. I'd work on this aspect. And then, yes, there's endless potential for development here. In other words, many things can be added. This can be seen as, well, I see in general the game has a lot of functionality. The very same battle pass, daily bonuses, a variety of ships and classes, daily events, all of this is abundant, but the player does not see the value in it. There is no compelling narrative that would engage them, no multiplayer at the beginning to make them understand that they can battle on one ship against another enemy in real time. There is no moment that would captivate and hold the attention of the player, leaving them wanting more from the game experience. I specifically felt the lack of this. And in terms of monetization, yes, there is an option to, let's say, purchase currency, upgrade ships. But even by upgrading the ships, there is no understanding of how much it will actually perform in battles. Because, well, from what I understood, it's necessary to change the team composition, and somehow it eventually affects the outcome. And somewhere in the middle of the second stage, after winning around 15 battles, I realized that essentially I couldn't progress further without making a purchase. I still have a range of modes left that I haven't seen and won't see anymore. So I think we need to engage players more strongly.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a bunch, Maxim. Denis, come on, let's go.
Yes. Hello, everyone, guys. Oleg and I are going to talk a little about monetization with you now. As everyone has already mentioned, there is no advertising in the game. Therefore, the immediate question that arises is probably, was it the main goal when the game was being developed? For instance, to avoid dealing with advertising?
Look, we were merely reiterating the route. I didn't originate anything. I simply took the route and attempted to apply it to spaceships. That is the extent of it. And I just tried to copy the whole core and everything from there. Well, then, of course, all sorts of things like base defense and so on started. But initially, and I simply did not observe any medical advertisements in Battlers, and not in any of the space games that I played. And that's why it seemed to me that it would be impractical to deter, so we didn't consider going in that direction.
The idea is correct, but the thing is different. The thing is, with AFK Arena and others, their entire economy is based on in-game purchases, which is why they to some extent avoid advertising. But initially, when they create the game, they anticipate this. How do they do it? They are willing to build a core audience through acquisition in order to monetize it later over time. So, their initial purge in that location could potentially be extended based on the specific group of people involved, as well as the particular country in question. They can afford it simply because they have cash flow, investments, and that's why they look at it from a slightly different perspective, like scaling first, then purchases. Second question, your first purchase, how close is it to the first cube?
The day of installation? On the very first day. On the very first day, I even noted that 68% of our users pay on the first day.
On the first day, what RPPY is obtained?
Oh no, not 68%, I fabricated 68 cents.
This is RPPY, 68 cents. Yours, right? This is the average check, I mean.
No, this is not the average check. This is the revenue for this day, for the first day. Yes, this is the revenue that has been generated by the player.
Is it the lifetime value of the first day from a paying user? No, it is the lifetime value of the first day.
And what is the current count of second and third purchases that you have in your possession at the moment?
On the second day, our LTV is $1. On the 10th day, it stands at $2, gradually increasing to $3 around the 100th day, and eventually reaching $4. Well, approximately around $4.5.
So, if I understand correctly, out of the entire 100% of the cohort, it is approximately 2 to 3% of the individuals who convert to $4, right? Can you confirm if my understanding is accurate?
No, the average cost is $4 for each item.
Well, on the 10th day.
And on the 10th day, the amount of money is $2.
What can I say? Your prices are high, indicating that you have ambitions and a strong desire to sell a large quantity of products. The problem at hand is that I am able to perceive, based on the information depicted in those graphs, that the rate of retention is quite low. The reason for this is simply that those particular cases involving money are not actually reached by anyone in the end, thereby resulting in a lack of purchases being made. To put it differently, the player does not see any value in the game that is worth spending money on. This is why everything is designed this way in the FC arena, following the typical casino approach to keep the player engaged for as long as possible. Through different methods, animations, mechanics, objectives, vessels, well, I imply in numerous ways they attempt to initially determine during tests what captures players' interest, what enables them to stay engaged for a prolonged period. And then they begin to adjust players, I imply, to sell them some cards, sell them heroes. Well, I imply to implement this entire scheme. In reality, the problem you are encountering is situated at a fundamental level where the retention of your players is currently low. Any theme you endeavor to emphasize regarding achieving high checkouts, even with the strategy of price copying, will not yield the desired results until you successfully overcome this threshold. Therefore, my recommendation is to consider implementing advertising monetization as a potential solution for a certain period of time in order to address this issue and potentially improve player retention. Furthermore, if necessary, there are two approaches to tackle this. The first approach is to make it available upfront for all players. The second approach is to segment the audience into different groups. If you have created a system that can indicate when a player who is following a specific behavior pattern is likely to make a purchase, you generally have the option to postpone displaying advertisements to that player. However, as I mentioned previously, you are facing a fundamental problem where your players have a tendency to die rapidly within the game. And it is of utmost importance to work in this direction with great thoroughness and utmost seriousness. From what I've played, what I didn't like, I'll say because the guys have already mentioned what they liked, everything is very superficial. Very superficial. At the moment, I have the 12th Pro Max, which is essentially the same in terms of form factor as the 14th. There haven't been many changes in screen size. They have remained quite similar in that aspect. And here's the question, were you initially focusing on tablets or phones as your target devices for this project?
On phones.
But here's the thing, the details are small, meaning the battle takes place. You look at it, there are like 5 pixels fighting against another 5 pixels. You don't feel anything in this battle, meaning you don't have the desire, you don't have the most important thing. That's why I spend time here. You always need to understand that you are competing with your game not only against other games, but also with TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and so on. When making a mid-core game, your ambition should be that our player will be sitting, playing, and at the same time they will be watching YouTube not on their phone, but on a computer, for example, or on a television. But we will occupy his time right here and now. And then the player will feel that I am ready to spend money in this game, so I'm having fun here. Because, well, it's like with movies. We can watch movies at home, but occasionally it is wonderful to go and see a film on the big screen, and we are willing to pay for that. This should be taken into consideration in the same manner. In terms of monetization, it makes sense to prioritize rewards initially to avoid significantly disrupting the balance of the economy, and secondly, to focus on in-game purchases. By doing so, we can ensure that the economy remains stable while also capitalizing on the potential revenue from in-game transactions. This will enable you to, at the very least, enhance your LTV of the initial days, even if only by a small amount. I comprehend that the tutorial is completed by practically every individual who opens the game, well, approximately 70% plus, in all probability, according to the available statistics.
No tutor, much doesn't pass. It depends on what we see as tutorials. First chapter is...
Here's the first chapter. How many do you have?
In fact, it doesn't take a considerable amount of time, I think.
This is a matter of concern, Denis. The graph shows that 20% of the issue is in Tier 1 countries, while in all other countries it can reach up to 8%.
Well, I can confidently say that you guys really need to address the fundamental issues because it is currently difficult to advise you on monetization right now, as there is a significant fundamental problem with player retention that needs to be resolved as a top priority. So, why do various FC arenas, raiders, choose a somewhat neutral theme with monsters, something understandable, fantasy-like? Because the audience within this niche is much broader than in space, considering the fact that space is extremely specialized. And I believe that due to this, there could be initially competition. As a result, pricing, you are competing for, let's say, similar players. And the price tag will increase because there are quite a lot of games for this niche. And, well, in order to express it correctly, you need to have a strong fundamental foundation. I mean, that's precisely why I want to stay with you. The issues you are facing are all relatively minor, but still significant and need to be addressed. I played, my eyes hurt, to be honest. I look at the inscriptions, I have to strain my eyes. Everything is still very cluttered on top of each other, and as a result of this, you start to feel overwhelmed. In other words, a significant amount of information and tasks are thrown at the player all at once, and perhaps they simply arrive and desire to witness the manner in which something soars, eliminates. However, they begin accumulating on him, and he no longer comprehends what actions to take in that location. Maybe it requires restructuring, gradually introducing it, to provide him with the sensation that he is fully immersing himself, to steer him along this line of immersion. And they have already discussed interactivity. The only interactivity that currently exists, or rather two forms of it, in battle levels, is the ability to choose which enemy to attack, as I understand it, like a ship to focus fire on, and the option to press a button to use skills. I am unsure if you have observed how many people actually utilize skills, but I believe the percentage is low, as they do not use them at all. Therefore, what is the purpose of retaining this function? It seems redundant to keep a feature that is rarely utilized by players. Maybe it needs removing for battle to happen on its own, but it'd be better to enhance animation, e.g., of skills themselves. In other words, the way it looks, the way it explodes, the way it flies, all of this visual aspect. And to work on interactivity, for example, you could, I don't know, when you're in a battle, have it so that, well, you have the option there to have another fighter jet appear on the screen, or to receive a warning that an attack on your destroyer is imminent. There, you have a shield charged, press the shield, well, to protect it, some things like that, in order for the player to not only be a mere bystander, but also actively take part in the game. Maybe this will start to yield results, leading to enhanced retention and increased benefits for you in the long term. By increasing retention and using internal ads, as I mentioned, rewards and in-app purchases, your LTV will gradually increase, allowing you to stabilize and acquire a higher quality audience from the start. That is, if you invest in acquisition. In relation to rewards, it has already been mentioned that supplementary rewards have the capability to be incorporated. The only thing, of course, that one wouldn't want to leave behind are all those gacha mechanics. But perhaps it will also be necessary to think about that. Perhaps the game that is currently in the mid-core category, in your understanding, does not entirely correspond to the mid-core level in terms of pricing and how it should convert. Perhaps it makes sense to descend a little lower on the step, for instance, there, casual, a casual hybrid of some sort, or something that is in some way related to the genre of casual strategy games. In other words, to give users more opportunities to customize these ships so that they feel some effects, that they interact. Enhance interactivity in battles and incorporate rewards for extra resources. Integrate rewards into the store, allowing players to receive resources on a daily or multiple times a day basis. To implement a system in which players who visit your game daily can receive resources, a ship, or skins as rewards. Additionally, consider what other features or incentives can be added. This covers the main aspects, but further enhancements may be possible. However, when it comes to monetization, I would now prioritize focusing more on fundamental and basic aspects, and once you address and resolve them, you will start to observe a noticeable improvement in the monetization process.
Look, I will review the recording again. It seems to me that you have mentioned a lot of cool theses, but now I will ask more fundamentally. Look, if we had Apogee right now, we could quickly check out the competition. And there we would see Space Games and their 30-day retention. It's just terrible. When I saw it myself, I was completely surprised. 1%, 2%, and these are some top games. And maybe it's like a disease, it's fundamental, that we're crossing the whole world.
It is also possible, once again, due to the niche and the number of individuals. Once again, who is fond of spaceships? Let's take a closer look at the audience. What age group does this audience belong to? I do not believe that girls or guys who are into Fortnite, Minecraft, and other similar games would have an interest in any complex subject matter. The same goes for those who spend their time on TikTok. Don't forget, the audience now. It has changed significantly from what I can do. For example, sit down and read a book. Still. And let's say my 14-year-old sister can no longer sit down and read a book. She finds it more interesting to either listen to her or watch her in some way. The user has changed, and it's necessary to adapt to this change as well. You have whales, I heard, correct? Some quantity in all probability. These are most likely adult whales. Thus, this is approximately 30, and he is himself.
We typically target men 25 plus and older, reaching beyond that.
Even in the year 2000, the birth occurred when the person was 25 years old or older.
Even 25 plus is 2000 birth, yes indeed.
The year 2000 is exactly the generation that has already arrived and witnessed smartphones. Therefore, in 2014, they were 14 years of age. They've experienced the era when there were phones, when there were laptops. These aren't the people who were digging around on trackers to download something or on FTP or somewhere deeper to download a game and figure out how to run it just because it was interesting. This is a slightly different generation. Even when they are already delving into space themes, they have an expectation of encountering something different and distinctive in their exploration. And naturally, I comprehend that there exist colossal entities in the realm of space tactical combat games. That is precisely where Homeworld is situated. At present, the anticipated release of the third installment is imminent. These are titans, and even they, if you take a look at their sales figures, will not gather as much revenue as Fortnite, for instance, in just one evening when they release a new battle pass. This is because the target audience for these games is very different. It is quite specific and narrow, a niche that demands you to be prepared for it in order to achieve success. She requires proper instruction, a clear understanding of her expectations, and the ability to deliver what they desire in order to meet their needs. It is highly probable that they desire it to be visually appealing and have the ability to engage with them in some form or manner, possibly through interactive elements or features. I believe so. However, in this case, you will need to conduct research on your part in order for it to fall into the genre of science fiction. Perhaps they lack certain missions, because I wouldn't say narratively, that is, in terms of the plot, that something is missing. Again, I don't think they delve deeply into the storyline. They possess a keen interest in coming and observing the manner in which ships demolish other vessels during combat. Perhaps they're within the framework of some planets, not planets, but that's a separate story. However, the primary objective is to keep the user engaged during this initial phase, specifically on the first or second day.
Well, the question is, can this be fundamentally done? I mean, fundamentally, like by an order of magnitude. Well, by an order of magnitude and by an order of magnitude, but...
Yes, it depends on the fact that if we are talking about a mid-core game, then it needs to be approached as such, meaning thoroughly working on the battle dynamics, how the user is engaged in the game. In other words, refining all aspects of his gameplay, what he sees, how he interacts. It is imperative to maintain the correct balance in terms of difficulty. I am not particularly proficient in mid-core game matters, but I am aware that game developers always endeavor to create a roller coaster experience for players, enticing them, introducing challenges, and then providing rewards when they encounter failure, which can be in the form of in-game purchases or other types of incentives. And in relation to those identical perks, I observed that there are exclusively offers available solely when I entered the main screen of the application. The offers that were displayed throughout the duration of the game actually diverted my attention more than they provided any helpful or relevant information to me. And all these aspects, all the offers, also need to be presented correctly at the right moment. So it's not just about saying, here it is and someday you can come, but when the player has already felt that he is truly interested and invested in this place. Otherwise, well, you just showed it to him and he's like, why do I need this now? They're telling me I need to upgrade the ship, and here I have some offer. I don't understand anything. Therefore, in terms of retention, it is essential to establish the correct pipeline for the player in this context. That is, determining how they gradually enter the game. So the initial part, the tutorial. After the tutorial, the first missions with the ship's grades clearly indicated and marked out specifically for him to understand and follow. What you need is to level it up to the 6th level, not just mindlessly keep leveling up without knowing to what extent. If you did not level up, you lost the game. If you lost the game, it is because you took this much damage to your character's health points. It was imperative to utilize this. Make sure to give him some valuable information that he needs. Perhaps this will assist. It is also a radical change to overcome your retention. Well, it is not simple.
It is not an easy task. I will simply explain the reasons why I said it is not easy. We released a tutorial update in the month of September in the previous year. It took us 2 months to make it. We did everything properly. It was colorful, with fast-paced battles. The rewards have been reworked. Everything has been thoroughly thought out, because what we have now is done haphazardly, just for the sake of having something. And all the metrics were worse, both retention and monetization. Due to this outcome, we were compelled to hastily revert 2 months' worth of work.
Make shorter iterations. Don't make them last for 2 months. Make them shorter, keep moving. Well, I mean, you have a global idea, break it down even further. More precisely, you've broken down the global idea into sub-ideas, break them down even more, and see how it will progress.
That's correct, yes.
There is no need to preserve something for a long period of time only to end up being disappointed with the result. Game development is such that here one will always experience trial and error. If you have attempted something, I cannot state that it is an error. It is your personal experience in a certain manner. If you've already tried this and you're absolutely sure that even at the initial level it probably won't work, why pursue this hypothesis to the end? Let's try another one then.
If possible, I would like to add Denis's addition. Everything that was said is correct. What indeed, what indeed. In principle, it would not be bad to add some bonuses and rewards, new ships and so on in the game, but currently it looks something like this. So at the beginning, the game seems complex, colorful, and requires some understanding, and we have a tutorial to help with that. After finishing the tutorial and playing for a while, the player is bombarded with an overwhelming load of various battle passes. There are dice, a lost expedition, collecting puzzles, and more. It can be quite overwhelming for the player to navigate through all these new features and decide what to prioritize in the game. So, initially we have an assistant who guides the player, then all the functionality, every possible feature in terms of extras, is simply handed over to the player for exploration. So, it would indeed be beneficial for us to consider and discuss with you where, for instance, we could commence guiding the player. There is no need to establish a final objective, to what extent we will guide the player, simply and iteratively, starting with 1 or 2 steps there. We created a small tutorial version A, version B, tested it, yes, looked at what the A/B test shows, that players prefer this type of tutorial. We add another stage, take it a little further, and continue the process. So, over a period of time, little by little, step by step, we will develop a kind of assistant flow that will guide the player and gradually introduce all the functionality that essentially exists here. With respect to the fact that everything in this place is small, I haven't observed it yet as I used an iPad. Moreover, on the iPad, the visuals appear exceptionally vibrant and colorful. However, on occasion when I log in, I open, for example, the Hangar, and I notice that I possess skills, modules, and a multitude of attributes for a single vessel, yet it exceeds all expectations. Here are the overall power, damage, maximum range, hull damage, hull shield, damage reduction, ability cooldown, accuracy, and resistance. Honestly, even if I sat down and set a goal to study all these characteristics and then compare them between the ships, well, that would be quite a challenging task. Currently, we must prioritize simplification, guide the player, and demonstrate the cool things we have. We should work in this direction for an optimal experience.
It turned out to be something like EVE Online.
Cool. I never thought about simplifying, but this... Thank you. Yes, we're trying. I actually hadn't thought about it.
Actually, Peter, I will share my screen. Here is this alarming graph of yours. Colleagues, can you all see it? And what do we see here? We see drop-offs after the first level. Between the first and, let's say, fifth, it's at 75%. That's where the main disaster lies. If only a quarter of the individuals have achieved 50% of the instructional material by the fifth level, then all other efforts are devoid of meaning and ineffective until we address this particular section. Contemplating enhancements or striving for additional victories is fruitless and lacks potential. Our objective in this graph is for there to be approximately 10 levels remaining, with this point being approximately around 40%. Well, if there are a total of 50, that's good, but we need to have at least 40 of them. This will enable us to approach monetization in a completely different way, and this in turn is why we are nitpicking. The remark made by Rinaz is of great significance. The player does not comprehend the nature of the events that are unfolding. The player does not perceive the ship's health bar. He observes it from a lateral perspective, and he will comprehend it. After the fifth level, at the start you entered, you see something, and it's unclear what. Nowhere is it visible what. The ship's health is decreasing. When your gaze is blurred, Peter, you don't pay attention to it. You've already played this game 100, 500 times. And a new player, they don't see either the ship's health or many other things. They simply lack the necessary awareness. Here comes an individual, he will attempt, yes, over there, utilizing those herbs. He does not comprehend what it provides, how it occurs. And that is the conclusion, he got lost. A staggering 80% of players from Tier 1 countries do not complete the tutorials that are specifically designed to help them. When discussing all countries, the percentage is not even 80%, but rather a staggering 90% in reality. This in turn signifies only one thing, that is precisely where we need to dig. The initial task is to generate a clear and understandable tutorial. I can also earn currencies in that location. Please inform me, what resources do people buy? What are they commonly referred to as?
Resources? I do not know. Are they purchased in packs? Most likely ships.
It's the resources as they are called by you.
Rarikori is in well, maybe hard well ants. It is the most common thing that summons ships. Rarikori's ability to reliably summon ships has made it immensely popular in various maritime scenarios. And Ancient Orbs is Harda, an abbreviation for hard difficulty.
Look at what's happening. This is unclear. People, we're talking anyway. It's easier for them gold, crystals. When we discuss space, it should involve some form of plasma. Even the currency you use is quite complex and requires a deep understanding of its intricacies. The individual lacks understanding of her own significance. It may seem trivial, but I firmly believe that she possesses the potential to make a genuine impact in her role. The main problem is here, on the screen. It's right here, on the screen. The issue is here, it's right here on the screen. And that's why users quit the tutorial. Let's solve this problem first, and then we will address all other aspects. The second point we need to consider is the monetization of the project. I would try it simply, maybe even without a reward. Initially, just ask the user to press the double add button or something like that, just to understand how important it is. Well, see how well it resonates with the user. Then increase the reward for the button. Provide him with a reward that has been increased by a factor of 5, then observe and commence the process of incorporating advertisements. However, without hybrid monetization, we will not be able to achieve success at this moment. The fact that it is not the IFK arena, well, that is obvious and can be easily observed by anyone. Their first purchase, it's somewhere, I think, on the 7th day in the median or there. By the 7th day, you won't have any users left. Well, roughly speaking, you'll have like 2-3% left from the cohort, and then some of them will pay. Once again, our initial issue is with the tutor, and these are the, well, significant setbacks.
Well, not 2 to 3%, yeah, very little.
So, what is the percentage of users that remained on the 7th day of their usage period or trial period?
I can't remember it by heart right now. Well, around October, when the featuring was happening, that's when we mostly watched. There were about 10% there.
Observe the current situation. I perceive 2 numbers if you are discussing the topic of 10%.
Look, these are the latest data. Speaking about the last month, I don't know who these users are and why they are behaving like this. These are somewhat atypical users. Our user retention in the United States, for example, was 25% on the initial day, which is somewhat typical. However, it has experienced a significant decline in recent times. I am unsure whether this is our error or if there has been a modification with the users.
Here I can inform you with 99% certainty that it is your mistake. The percentage of the mistake is 3%. Regarding the user, if there was any update, I will make an effort to roll it back. But based on what I see, ideally, on the first day, the user should aim to reach a level of 15, 17 at the very least, but definitely beyond 10. And this in turn signifies that at levels 12 and 13, you have a mere 8% of users considering the entire world. This data emphasizes the relatively low number of users at these levels in comparison to the overall user base globally.
Yes, these recent months, we have users from India, Pakistan, Iran. I think some, I don't know, they are coming more than 1,000 a day. And this yellow line, this whole graph, is the current graph, just probably in the last couple of months. And he really looks like that. These are such Turks and Iranians and all these beautiful countries.
At the very least, we display ads, but it's evident they won't bring in much money. If you have offended an Indian user, then there is a 99.9% chance that they will never purchase anything on Android. Well, yes. Well, I think that's all from me. Peter, if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them.
No, you all speak clearly. It's understandable. Here we need to think more. The question is in the implementation, how to implement it. Currently, we have about 20% in theory, but you say we need at least 50%. And I have a question. How do we do this?
Denis, please share your opinion with me. I'm curious to know how realistic you think this is.
How realistic is it taking into consideration this story?
There certainly won't be 50 of you, but let's be objective. In order to reach 50, it requires a very thorough development of the game. I would aim for an approximate percentage of around 30 or more to start with, targeting a range of 30+%.
What are we talking about?
Regarding day retention, which is in existence, and users who do not experience a drop-off.
I am referring to the trajectory or path taken by the turret during its movement or rotation.
Ideally, a tutor's completion rate should be 50 or above. Ideally, in mid-core, their goal is to achieve results of 60 to 70% of users who come here. Otherwise, it indicates that they are acquiring the wrong users, which is not desirable for their success. They require users to stay in the game because all the money comes afterwards. If they don't retain users, if everyone drops off, then their economy doesn't work out. It is crucial for them to keep the users engaged and active in order to ensure the success of their financial model.
No, this graph is all about organic growth. Purchases, well, they behave in a different manner, of course. However, yes, it is not 50%, I agree.
Well, I mean, to try your best. I think that in your cases, thoroughly developing the tutorial and refining all subsequent player pipelines after the tutorial will lead to significant growth. because there is so much going on right now, and the main question is, why so much? Perhaps simplifying these numerous mechanics that could be but are not being used or are not interesting, and focusing on more engaging arcade-like elements rather than just fun ones, would be much more advantageous and beneficial at the current moment in time. This approach could enhance the overall experience and attract a wider audience, leading to increased popularity and success for the game in question.
Friends, thank you so much. The biggest thing I realized, well, yes, I have a blurred look. I watch tutorials literally several times every week, and I never even thought about simplifying it, but you were convincing. Seemingly, that's the most crucial. What needs to be done? About rewards? I'll ponder rewards. I believe something can be done.
Can I add something? Perhaps specifically about rewards. Here we could work on the outcome of the battle. That is, the player doesn't have that wow feeling when they win. It's like everything just happened on its own. They watch some nice animations, and that's it. And then he receives, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 different cells of various currencies with which he is not very familiar in principle. If we could enhance the value of triumph for him, that is, at a certain point the player essentially reaches a stage where he is unable to make further progress, he requires to upgrade his ships. For this he needs to purchase some package, enhance them in some way, I don't know, and he is essentially unable to replay the previous level. Once I was able to replay a level that I had already finished, and I cannot figure out the method to do it again. So this map in the Milky Way company, made up of stars, is not entirely intuitive. I want to understand that by completing a certain stage, if we provide value for stage completion, for example, the player will be able to conquer territory, win these stars, see progress, how they are moving, then perhaps it will be more interesting for them to win these battles and receive some reward for it. And this reward can be doubled for an additional reward, providing even more incentive for the player to strive for victory in the game. Even if, for instance, he is not prepared to make a purchase, let's assume some currency for actual money, providing him with the opportunity to replay levels, earn currency, develop skills, and continue to upgrade his ships in order to progress further in the game. And here the advertising monetization fits well. It will enable both earning money and players to continue playing.
And the classic way, I do not know, Peter, please tell me, what is the price of a pack of hard currency for you, and how much of this extremely hard currency is available?
The cheapest. For 100? No. The cheapest is $2. I don't remember how many are inside. I remember for $100, for 100, 7,800, as far as I remember.
Well, I mean, for $2, maybe 100, or
50.
Permission to observe a fisherman's location and obtain 1 unit of this valuable currency in exchange for $2.01 after approaching the designated window. 1 unit of hard currency and permission to do it once a day, and every day when it becomes available for free, and a little more. You can also do it 4 times a day with a cooldown of 6 hours. This way you potentially increase tension for yourself. In other words, a person is interested, comes, looks at the reward, and leaves. It will not have a significant impact on your economy, but the action of taking away this very hard currency is of great interest to him.
Thank you.
Well, overall, I will say it once more, here, and once more here. It needs to be enhanced by 3 to 4 times. It is completely achievable. The game is good, the game is beautiful, but it suffers from EUX end-user experience. According to colleagues, it is imperative for the game to undergo extensive localization, particularly in the initial stages of development.
The question here is not about patronizing, but about gradually introducing the player to the complexity of the mechanics. There's no need to assume that the player is clueless and doesn't understand. I believe it is actually the opposite. The more complex the game, the higher the entry barrier. It is preferable to lower the entry barrier. So, in order to attract a large audience initially, and then retain those who genuinely believe that this game is meant for them from that initial audience.
I can recall all of the same classic third heroes. I believe that many people who have played this game can remember them. At the start, if I recall correctly, in the castle, you have access to only 2 or 3 kinds of units, and they will not even permit you to advance any further. You do not understand what to do and how to proceed. It's done there with different goals, but nevertheless, it's all simple there. While for you, it's very difficult, even though it seems like you can't do much at the beginning, but you already have the opportunity to do it. And here's a very complex menu. Until a person has completed 30, 40 levels, there is no need to overwhelm them with all the complex menu options. Gradually add all these features and avoid overwhelming players with them, even when they reach level 10. That's everything from me, I believe.
Here, I think many are done with this.
Well then, it's time to wrap up. All right. Thank you to all my colleagues. Thank you, Peter. From you, I gather that the game is beautiful, good, has potential, but there is still a lot of work that needs to be done in the future. There is a lot of work, and part of this work involves not just assembling, but also disassembling and simplifying.